Super excited for this match. So one thing I'll talk about, I think the conventional wisdom, if you ask most people which deck is favored in this matchup, I think a lot of people will tell you that Ruby Sapphire is, with a lot of the cards it has here, especially with the Pirate's Life, able to claw back. But I've talked to some players who were coming in who were with Green Steel before today, and they said they tested this matchup out quite a bit, and they did very well into it. So there's a lot of very talented Emerald Steel players who are confident going into this matchup.
This card can go a long way in this match, Liam. Not to mention Pete. Pete can go a long way. There's lots of actions. You know, with a lot of the cards we talked about are actions. Be prepared as an action. We've seen a lot of that going around. We don't know if Daniel Holt's playing a Pirate's Life or not, but that is something that has become very prevalent over the last couple of weeks in Lorcana. It got a little popular a few weeks ago, and it's getting more and more popular because people are liking it in a lot of the matchups where you fall behind a lot early, which is generally the weakest point where Ruby Sapphire is generally a little bit weaker to the aggro decks, right? Like Diggy Diggy Hole can have kind of a good matchup into blue-red, especially if they've got daisies early. And this is a way for you to kind of claw your way back in late in the game. You know, if you can just kind of sing that song off one of your characters, it's generally better than doing anything else in the matchup. So it can kind of win from some unwinnable spots here. We are getting to see the reshape of the hand here from Daniel quite a bit. Not so much from Luke. I'm really looking forward to watching Luke play this round. I got to watch quite a bit in Seattle, like anyone else who watched the Seattle coverage, and he was very impressive in that tournament. So love to get to see that. Got to get to see some play out of him. Daniel Holt, no slouch here as well, playing this Ruby Sapphire. Looks like these players are quite chatty here as well. You'd love to see that between the two competitors.
Yeah, I'm trying really hard to see what Daniel's going to do here. One thing I'll note is, there's multiple ramp options available in these Sapphire decks. When you're playing a discard deck, cards like Tipo on turn 2, which take an extra card from your hand into your Inkwell, don't feel quite as good as cards like One Jump Ahead, which allow you to take a card off the top of your deck.
So I was going to say, I think I caught it right. Daniel, changing up his hand, kept some of the cheaper cards, got rid of some of the more expensive ones, or the ones they might not want right away. And I believe his 3 draws were Sisu Dragon.
Yes,
it was like
yes.
It was like 8-8-9 or whatever.
Oh,
so,
yes.
Yeah, so we've got the top end covered if you're Daniel.
You just got to get there.
We just got to get there. So the top of the deck is going to be pretty important for Daniel here. Hopefully he has a 2-drop ramp spell here. Hopefully he has another ramp spell behind this as well. Let's see if he had, if he's on the play and he goes like Azurite Sea into How Far I'll Go, then his hand all of a sudden becomes very, very good. So we'll have to see if he's got that draw for him here. We haven't gotten to see Luke's hand just yet, but I'm sure we will very, very quickly. Does Luke have one of the best heads of hair in Lorcana?
Oh, absolutely.
Very, very jealous of that hairline.
All right, we're all eagerly anticipating turn 1 here. It's hard to get a good look at Luke's hand, so but here we are, turn 1 Diablo, which will allow him to peek at Daniel's hand, see what he's up against, get a look at all those high link characters.
So I think so it was 2 Sisus, but it does look like it's a 3-drop Sisu here as well from Daniel. And seeing the strength of a Raging Fire immediately go into the Inkwell to play this Diablo in turn 1, I wonder if Luke knows what matchup this is. It knows that the strength of a Raging Fire probably is not going to be a card that he wants very early in this game, and that's a pretty big feather in his cap in this matchup if he knew right away and it helped him out with his reshape of his hand early in the game.
This is a very good curve here for Daniel, able to play the Popsicle on turn 1, 1 jump on turn 2, into a Sisu on turn 3, and then the Hiram on turn 4. Very, very powerful. I think we also got the Brawl, which will be especially important if Luke is shifting Diablo and trying to get that online early. We'll see. Instead, we're going to Ursula Deceiver. We're going to take another look here. We're going to pick that 1 jump, which was, oh, no.
Oh, Azurite Sea off the top. That means Daniel. I wonder if Daniel's playing 1 jump, Azurite Sea, and Tipo in his deck. Maybe he just has like a 9th copy.
Yeah, what about, I mean,
1 jump ahead.
Gosh, what a bummer. Luke knows that Azurite Sea was gotten off the top deck, trying to pick that turn 2 play.
Yeah, you can see him point to the card like, oh, man.
Yeah. So there it is. That 1 jump ahead is gone. However, Daniel here able to play that action. We'll see it here in short order.
Human Sisu off the top for Daniel here as well. Going to be able to pick off either one of these characters from Luke whenever he wants to be able to have free ink available for that as well. That card pretty good in this matchup. It's going to be pretty good at picking off quite a bit of the stuff from Luke here. How does Daniel want to see this? What does he want to use to his Inkwell? That Vitalosphere is probably going to be held on for that. However, some for later. Do you want to put the Brawl away? Looks like he's trying to figure that out himself.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Doesn't look like the Vital Sphere is going to get put away.
Yep, Vital Sphere into the Inkwell for Sail the Azure at Sea. Putting an extra card.
I love the grin off the top for Daniel here as well. And he's going to give perfect information back over to Luke by putting this T-Bow into play. He got the little grin like, I just keep drawing these 2-drop ramp spells.
Yeah. And another note, I don't think he had to reveal that. You put that into card or from your hand into the Inkwell takedown.
Sure.
But yeah, information, fun there. Back over to Luke. You know, one of the ways that Luke can win this game in this matchup is to force heavy discard early, try to winnow down the resources that Daniel needs to put into his Inkwell in order to get into the end game here. But that Hiram coming on next turn is going to make that a challenge.
Yeah, that's something that generally works out pretty well in the fact that, you know, the red-blue will develop all their cards early. They'll play the Pawpslicles, they'll play their ramp, and then they'll play one of their big 5, 6, 7 drops, or those will be the only cards left over in their hand. So if Luke takes his time and then starts to make Daniel discard on turns 4, 5, and 6, he'll be getting those higher impact cards, hopefully. Like you were saying, though, with Hiram Flaversome being around, there's a chance that Daniel's going to have a lot of cards left over here, and the discard might not be as impactful as you would have it here. But Luke with a really good setup here so far. He's got the Prince John set up to possibly draw some extra cards here and keep up in card quantity with Daniel. I don't know if he's going to be able to keep up in card quality with Daniel as this game goes on. You know, Maui Half Shark looks like it's made its way here as well.
Yeah, so we talked about the early game strategy, try to winnow down the resources, perhaps. And of course, the discard's not as strong without Bucky available, but you can winnow down your opponent's hand, put them with some limited options. If that doesn't work out, one of the ways to win this game in the long game is to get Prince John's online, as well as perhaps a Diablo, and just overwhelm your opponent with resources. We actually saw this in Vegas with Zansead, I think, in the finals, had a grip of like 20 cards in hand at one point, more cards in his hand than in his deck.
He like, couldn't fan it all out.
Exactly,
Like,
just sorting through it and couldn't figure out what to do because so many options were available. But that's one of the things that this deck can do with Diablos, with Prince Johns, if it gets going. And so in the late game, that might be something that Luke's looking to do if we can get that discard engine online.
So it does look like 2 fresh cards for Daniel off the Haversome. Now back over to Luke. He's going to go ahead and sing Sudden Chill here. So a card is going to get lost for Daniel here. That Tamatoa that was added, which I think it was 2 Tamatoas off the top here. So that means a card away for Daniel, an extra card added to hand for Luke here, drawing off that Prince John. I think I caught a glimpse of possibly a Pete in Luke's hand, but he's doing a very good job of keeping the hand away from us here this game. See what else he's got here. Yuza's not the best in this matchup. There's only a couple things you could bounce, but there is a good target over on Daniel's side. Looks like a second Prince John is going to be added here.
Dear.
That must have been the draw off of the Sudden Chill. So you can see the players giggling to each other. It looks like we've got a Smee, a Song, and I believe that was a Doc left over in Luke's hand.
Yeah, no, Prince John can be strong in this matchup here. Prince John, not a card that you see questing terribly often, but one of the things I'll note about the Ruby decks in this meta right now is in a lot of them, especially in Ruby Sapphire decks, Maui is a card that we've seen, the original Maui from set 1, the 5/7 that can rush. We've seen it around in most of these decks in the meta, but now it's starting to be worked out a little bit in favor of other cards like Maui Half Shark. And so Luke, knowing that that card might not even be in this build, feels free to quest with that Prince John, getting some lore, but making it vulnerable.
Yeah, and I think you see the ramifications of that across the entire metagame. You're seeing a lot of players start to put locations back into their decks because of Maui coming down in play just a little bit. I'm still a big fan of the card. I think some people are still playing this. We'll have to see if we even see one from Daniel. Looks like he's going to go ahead and play that small Sisu, take out the Diablo from Luke. You see the big Sisus in Daniel's hand here. That could be scary. He's going to go ahead and put some damage on the Prince John, just in case, you can't, hey, you want to quest this one again? I'm going to pick it off. 2 brawls in Daniel's hand now, so he's going to go ahead and put one of those into the Inkwell and pass the turn.
Yeah, and
back over to Luke.
What he's doing is setting up that shift line for next turn. Those Prince Johns are actually challenging to deal with for a lot of Ruby decks. That ward makes them, unbrawlable. You can't choose them with Sisu, etc.
Yeah, it's so huge that he's setting up this great turn for next turn. Luke, though, at the ready, has a Song, has a Let the Storm Rage on, ready to take care of this Sisu. And anyone who's played this matchup knows you can never let the 3-drop Sisu stand around. It's going to be a little too impactful. So go ahead and pick that off, draw a card. If he draws a discard spell here off the top, nope. Let's say if he did, he'd have been off to the races, Luke would have been. But also, I haven't even thought about this. Little John, pretty sweet in a metagame where there's a ton of docks from your opponents, because if they ever do actually discard a card, you got to draw some cards off that as well.
That's true. Force him in an awkward position.
Yeah. I do love the green steel decks starting to use Dock and a few of the other cards are doing, because I have seen some games degenerate where when you have the Muses in play, you're just bouncing your own Dock over and over again all the turns just to make sure the gas keeps coming. So you can do some really great stuff there. Luke trying to get out to an early Lord lead. He's up to 9 now after this turn. Let's see, what else does he want to deploy here? We're going into the 6 ink turn from Daniel. Not too worried about B-Prep or Sisu just yet.
Yeah, it's just an awkward hand for Daniel right here. Unfortunately, there's a lot of items in this deck. We saw Vitalispheres, we saw Pawpslicles. Not being able to get that Flavisham engine going the last few turns is frustrating. Luke, of course, questing with his Prince John here, making it vulnerable to that Flavisham, but really valuing that lore. And I'll tell you what, if Flavisham's challenging into it to remove it, it's not drawing you cards.
Yeah, I think that's a good reason and a good point out there to why Luke's doing that. Really powerful hand shown from Daniel here. Lots of options over the next few turns. They're going to be extremely powerful, extremely expensive, but that's the advantage of his deck when it gets into this later game. So Diablo deployed from Luke here. One last card left over.
Diablo, Devoted Herald coming down. It's a card that players hate to play against. That'll get some card draw going here if it survives this turn.
Visions off the top here from Daniel as well. It does look like he's going to go ahead and take that challenge that you and I have been talking about, take care of that Prince John, but it did get 4 lore and an extra card earlier, so it's done its job. Second copy still in play here. Luke, like Daniel's going to lead off with this Visions. Is there anything in particular you think he's looking for?
I mean, there's one. Even a Pawpsicle would be nice at this point. Try to get that card draw going.
Looks like there's a Pawpsicle, a couple more ramps in Sail Desert Sea and Tipo. I think, is that a Madam? Is the 4th card, I believe?
It was, and not enough ink to play at this turn. You'd love to get that Diablo offline, but oh man, it's a tough spot right now. One of the things I'll talk about with the Emerald Steel deck too, you see Luke pushing his lure total a bit higher. In previous sets, Emerald Steel decks have sometimes played where they've gotten like full control of the game, forced you into discard mode, gone really wide, and then chose to close it out very quickly. But Emerald gained a really important card this set, which you see worked into a lot of Emerald decks, pretty much every Emerald deck that I can think of, and that's Go-Go Tamago, which gives you a lot of what I'll call reach. It's a way to gain lore that's not questing instantly. So that's one thing as we get to 15, 16, 17 lore that starts to become a factor and will allow you to perhaps snatch victories from the jaws of defeat, and it's something to remember.
So does this look like Smee going to get played here, followed up by Doc to draw 2 fresh cards for Luke here. No discard as well, and he knows he's about to lose most of these characters, so he's going to go ahead and get those quests in while he can. That's 4 more lore added to him here. He's at 13, but we're about to start getting to some of the dangerous numbers from Daniel here. We're going into the 7 ink turn here, but no B-Prep allowed, or to be found for Daniel here. Still got that Sisu, but that's a turn off.
Yeah, this is one of those instances where one turn makes such a difference. That Sisu one more turn away. That Sisu is the answer.
The Pawpsicle Madam off the top, or the Pawpsicle Sisu off the top. Small Sisu, the 3-drop 1/1 version. So that can pick off Diablo here or the Ursula. He can keep inking his way up to his 8-drop for next turn. But Sisu is going to be really impactful. Was able to deploy a Smee. That's something that does get around the Sisu, and he's already at 13 lore. This is starting to get a little hairy for Daniel here. Lore total is getting pretty high on Luke's side.
No, you need to sweep the board. You need to be prepared if you're running them. Some of the decks have started to work them out. Be prepared would have been nice. Here we have a Pawpsicle, drawing into a Vitalisphere, and another item.
Almost a freebie here. Get another look at the top. If it's an inkable card, ink that one on. Play the mat if you want. It looks like he might be going the Sisu route here as well. Be able to maybe play multiple cards next turn, because he's going to be able to shift onto this. Give himself some a lot more options next turn. Oh, here we go. I was about to say, he's going to go ahead and give this rush and take down the Prince John. That's a really good play there, utilizing the Vitalisphere. Something that doesn't always happen. We forget that these cards have text on them because they're just almost always
Flavisham food.
Yeah, they're almost always food.
Yeah, fantastic play here. Vitalisphere doing work, allowing you 2-for-1 with that Sisu there. 2 resources devoted to that, but definitely slowing down Luke. Now we're within striking distance of the Sisu. One thing you noted, though, Sisu, when it comes down, will not take care of that Smee. Smee with 3 strength. Here's a fun card. This is I'm Still Here. It's a card that's become a little bit more popular recently, especially in these Emerald Steel decks. This card will give resist +2 to Smee and then draw Luke a card. It is a song, so it can be sung. Fun note here, I'm still here. Giving resist 2 will prevent that 1 damage from being dealt to Smee at the end of the turn.
Yep. And that means that Smee might be sticking around an extra turn or two and not get picked off by that Haversam. That might be enough to win the game for Luke here. He's got 4 lore on board that will put him up to 17. I saw at least 1 Cursed Merfolk left over in the hand. That's something that can repair pretty well after the Sisu. It's a high lore character because Luke probably can't deploy another character here this turn because any of them would be eaten up by the Sisu that he knows is in Daniel Holt's hand. So it does look like he's going to take those 4 lore points, go up to 17. Looks like double Cursed Merfolk and Strength of a Raging Fire. Does he want to deploy one of these into his Inkwell? Does he want to keep these cards? Yeah, let's see. I gotta believe he's thinking about inking the Strength.
Well, let's see.
Yeah.
You're right. There it goes. And we are keeping the 2 Merfolk as a response after the sweep, if that happens.
You're gonna be able to play out your whole hand possibly next turn.
Not a super helpful card. We have another Flavisham here. We're going to eat the Popsicle. Look for another 2 cards.
You're making me hungry. Haven't had lunch yet. Eat the Popsicle, huh?
Another Flavisham and a Grandma. I mean, not what you want. So that Daniel pointing out there, you should have taken 1 damage in Smee. Luke reminding him resist 1 or resist 2 means he does not take that damage.
He took negative damage, in fact.
And true.
It does look like we got the Sisu just going to come up here. This does leave the Smee in play, though. So Luke got a virtual 15 here and has a decent reload. These 2 cards in his hand each have 2 lore.
Is this a go? It is not. I was going to say that 2 damage on the Flavisham at this point becomes relevant. A Go-Go Tamago would give him 2 lore off the top deck. We do not get that. Instead, drawing into another Diablo Devoted Herald. Luke now questing for 2, going up to...
Going to go up to 15 here. Let's see. How does Luke want to thread this? He's going to play 2 not... Yeah, I was going to say, I like not playing the Cursed Merfolk here, just in case there is another sweeper here. There is another Sisu kind of thing. That's a very scary spot, because if that happens, now you're left with nothing. So I see 2 Grandmas, a Haversam, I believe that's a Visions, and then a Half Shark. So none of the sweeper effects from Daniel here.
I got it. Draw into more remover here. We do have the dime, so we know Daniel Holt is running a version with the lucky dime. But
all blue cards here, too. None of the red stuff that he might be looking for. At that time, the Smee does take damage. There we go. I didn't see what he grabbed here, but he had a couple of different options, including some more items. I think that might have been what he got. Yeah, it looks like it's another Popsicle. It's going to get a card deeper. Another Grandma Talia. Going to go ahead and draw 2 more cards here. Looking to find something to interact with this board. Oh, there's
a Be Prepared.
And he can actually sing this off the Sisu as well. This is huge. Yeah, Be Prepared.
Should I do it? Should we do it?
You can. I'm not.
I'm going to imitate Baker here. Be prepared. Don't tell Baker. That wasn't as good. But there it is, cleaning the board and allowing him to start over here.
One day I will sing. Today is not that day.
Yeah. I wouldn't call what I just did singing, so if it makes you feel better.
Maybe if I get to go to Worlds, I'll do it. So we'll see.
It's one of the things that makes Be Prepared so good is you can sing it, as you pointed out, and then respond immediately with a Maui Half Shark. Now, this is such a challenge because it shuts down the aggression from Luke. Luke can't leave anything vulnerable to challenging, or else Maui, upon the challenge, will allow him to bring an action card back from his discard to his hand. And now that Be Prepared is in the discard pile, that's an insurance policy as long as Maui's on the board.
Yeah, but any action he plays is going to gain him a lore point as well. So Daniel's going to be able to close the game pretty fast from here as well. The first Grandma is going to be followed up by a second Grandma, getting more card quality as well. I think that was a Be Prepared off the top for Daniel Holt as well. And this is the way that this matchup goes a lot for Blue Red. Looks like, oh, there it is, a Pirate's Life. Going to be sung by Maui. That's actually going to gain him 3 lore and take away 2 from Luke Goodwin. I think that actually might just be the nail in the coffin already from him here, because the Blue-Red deck, Daniel Holt, is in the spot that he really wants to be in this matchup.
Now it's firing on all cylinders. You know, one of the things I'll talk about in this deck is we've always talked about this deck, or I've always referred to it as an engine builder. And one of the engines it was trying to build is the Tamatoa with the Lucky Dime, with the Flavisham, where it cycles Popsicles, builds up items, and then it can shut down games very quickly at the end. But in this set, we got a second engine for this deck, and that's Maui Half Shark, which can pull item or actions back from your discard pile. One of the actions it loves to play out of the discard pile is this Pirate's Life. So every time Maui's able to challenge, that's another 2 lore swing that's coming back into Daniel's hand that he can then deploy again, as well as having that Be Prepared in there. It's all of a sudden, it's a different ball game.
Yeah, now you're really seeing the strength of the Blue-Red deck, and what makes it so good is if it gets to this point where it has 8, 9, 10 ink, 11 ink, it gets to start to exert its will here, because its top decks are so much better in the late game than its opponents, because a lot of its cards cost 8, 9, and 10 and they're super impactful. when you get to this point, you're drawing a Curse Merfolk, and then they're drawing a card that costs 9 in a lot of these spots.
So we did get updated lure totals here, which is super relevant. Luke Goodwin, of course, 17, forcing, because of those 2 cards on the board, forcing that Be Prepared, resetting the board once again. And now honestly, Luke doesn't mind that, I think, quite so much as he did the previous one, because now Maui's off the board, and perhaps he can rebuild something here.
Yep. Left over of 4 ink after putting that Maui. That's going to let this Grandma get into play. So first back onto the board here.
Ooh.
Sudden chill off the top. No value off this other than just getting the card out of Daniel's hand, though. That Prince John was gone from last turn, though.
Yeah, but look at the cards. I mean, not many cards in hand here. We do have the Flavisham, but we have no items. Sail the Rajah Sea going to put, drawing a card. That's not a terrible card to draw.
Yep, this Haversham's going to get put into play, though. That Dragon's going to be left over, and the quest is going to go up to 11 from Daniel. I think this might be a hard game for Luke to get back into. Maybe it involves something with Ward getting into play and sticking, but
it would. Not a terrible card to put down there. Hidden Cove, we're going to slide it over. That'll give it an additional willpower. But you know what doesn't care about your willpower?
Dragons.
Dragons and Dragonfire.
Yeah, this will protect it from Brawl, but not from Maleficent. You see your opponent exerting a bunch of ink and counting it up. You know what's coming.
Oh, there it is. Using her Dragonfire ability, banishing Diablo upon entering play. Now we're left with nothing but a Hidden Cove. And another Pirate's Life here, using that Sing Together mechanic with both those characters working together, total of 6 cost, to sing that song, reducing Luke's lore by 2 and adding 2 to Daniel Holt's.
Yeah, 13 to 15 with the advantage being over to Luke, and that's going to be it for game 1 here. Daniel Holt up 1.
All right, here we are cutting decks. We're going to get to see the hand altar again, I believe. Yeah, we talked about this early on. Altering the hands is such an important part of this game. One thing to note, at this point in the tournament, it is round 3. The players may know what their opponents are playing, but it's also possible they're still playing in the blind here. So round 1, as you are altering your hand, you're altering it into the best hand for numerous possibilities. Here in game 2 in the 2-game format, you have not perfect information of your opponent's deck, but at the very least you know what colors they're playing and the majority of their cards. So you can alter your hand a lot more effectively.
Yeah, especially after the length of the last game. Oh, yeah, Luke is shuffling before he gets the cards off the top. I was going to say, Luke, good catch by our judge. Let's shout out our judges just quite a bit. They don't get enough love here on the weekends at these events. And right on top of it to help Luke it would have been an accident. No big deal. Very easily fixable, but it's a detriment to Luke to have, if he were to shuffle and then draw it, because then he could possibly draw the cards that were supposed to be on the bottom of his deck while he was reshaping his hand.
That's a good point. It's a good point. It is bad for the person who's who makes that mistake.
Good lookout, floor spotter. Good lookout, judge. Helping out Luke quite a bit there. I know I've done that before. You've probably done it in a few of the games.
I have. I have multiple times.
I didn't want to say you have for sure. I know I have. But
100%.
See two Diablos with the shift line. Okay, we've got multiple 1s and 3s in Luke's hand here. Plus, I think I saw a Cove as well. Pretty good start from him. Daniel going to be on the play here as well. Broke serve that first game. Very impactful start to the game. Okay, so let's say the Ursula going to get inked on turn 1 here into the 1-drop Diablo. Let's see what Daniel's working with, and this hand looks pretty powerful, Liam.
We do have the 2-drop here. One of the things we're missing is that first turn item. So we do have the Flavisham on 4, or on 3, in fact, with the Tipo there, but no item for it to eat, so that is a concern. We do have the ramp play, which is critical hit on turn 2, and the Azurite Sea as insurance. Let's see which one we'll see here.
I mean,
it's Azurite Sea.
Good for Daniel here. Like you said, no item as he draws the Popsicle there. A little late, thanks, deck. But one thing that actually works out very well from here is he's going to be able, since Azurite Sea, to use the Popsicle here this turn. That's one of the advantages of that card. You get to use that ink right away. He does have a Brawl sitting back behind his hand here, so he might not have, if he wouldn't have had the item here, he would have had a good play because there's very likely going to be a Diablo on Luke's side of the board here.
Yeah, and that draw was huge, hitting that Popsicle with the ink to play it there, smoothing everything out, and now we'll have Flavisham come down here on turn 3, able to eat that Popsicle and propel him. A fantastic draw there from Daniel.
Muse is going to make it into the inkwell for Luke here. Let's see how he wants to sequence this.
Not surprised. Muses is not a super effective card in this particular matchup. It doesn't do a whole lot for you. Not surprised we're seeing it as ink here.
Is he able to shift here? don't know if he is.
We don't have
I
an
don't-
action.
yeah,
I don't think
no
we have an
actions.
action.
So no action, so you just got to play straight up with the Diablos here.
It's unfortunate that he's not able to do that. That's something that if you can get a Diablo on board early, that's fantastic. We do know that we have the Brawl, however, which would be the perfect answer to Diablo. So perhaps good that we're not able to shift because you don't lose the 2-for-1 there.
Yeah, you'd almost actually be kind of happy with it, right? Like if you were to put a Diablo plus the Calhoun into play there, Daniel, if he brawls, he's not. Yeah, you see him shaking here. Like thanks, deck. The action off the. I love the flair from the players here because then you're not using Haversam that turn. If he were to use brawl, that makes Daniel play off curve, and Luke would have been okay with that. Now that Cove has been put into play, Luke moves the Diablo over to it, and that is going to protect it from that brawl from Daniel. That is huge.
Yeah,
for Luke.
fantastic play. Cove is this card that we saw worked in mid-last meta. People all of a sudden realized, hey, this is good. Not only does it make your characters a little extra, stick to the board a little extra with that extra willpower, but it puts them out of reach of cards that care about strength, like Brawl. And we're going to see it used to great effect here.
Yeah, have you ever put Calhoun on a location that buffs either its willpower or strength before?
I have not personally, but it sounds...
It is a nightmare to deal with.
Oh, dear.
So back over to Daniel here. Got that Haversam. Has a Vitalisphere in his hand. Has a Popsicle. Has a 3-drop hand Sisu. We've got multiple 3-drop Sisus in Daniel's deck, so let's clear that up.
This is such a challenge. One of the ways that we see these decks, especially Ruby Sapphire, propel themselves to the end game is with their card draw. We have the Flavish on board who wants to eat items. Let's say he draws an item here. You can't draw cards here without giving extra cards to Luke. Yeah,
I'm wondering what Daniel's plan is here. Is he going to try to ramp up to the Sisu? Because if he does play the small Sisu, he can maybe quest. I'm sorry, he can maybe challenge. He can maybe get the bigger Sisu into play a lot quicker here. Whoa. Yeah, I was going to say, that does look like this one to be playing. It's going to be the hand Sisu played from hand here.
Yeah, and we do have, again, 1 ink left over. We have the Popsicle. If we play the Popsicle, we give another card. So that Diablo right now is just really, really messing with Daniel's game plan, making things a little bit harder.
We're never going to see that Popsicle possibly make its way into the inkwell, or maybe you save it in case you could take care of this Diablo later. So hand Sisu here, if Luke goes a little too hard on drawing cards, so here's a play you can make. If you get the Sisu into next turn, what you do is you can make Luke draw extra cards off the Diablo. So your Sisu is big enough to attack down the Cove.
Yeah, we have this really interesting hand-size sub-game here where Daniel can force Luke to draw cards, which also makes his Sisu more powerful. It's interesting. We'll see if that comes into play.
That might happen next turn, because what he could do is he could go Popsicle, draw. Would you like to draw? Yes? Okay. Haversam, draw 2 more. Would you like to draw? Cool. Now challenge your Cove. Knock that out of here.
Yeah, you're right. You point out that it is a May ability, so that's something that Luke can avoid. But
it looks like we might just be getting that here. Vitalisphere is going to be active. Going after the hand Sisu, this has what? I think does that cost 2? Oh, so here we go. So this means 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5, 6. Yep.
Vitalisphere being used to great effect here in this matchup.
Yep. And with the Vitalisphere, it makes it exactly 6. That takes care of the Cove here. Nice find from Daniel here. Nice line.
Fantastic play. And now, of course, Diablo is brawlable. We drew into... I missed what the top deck was. But we have 2 Diablos in hand and the Smee. Nothing to put hand pressure on. We can develop the board a little bit more. But now, of course, we're getting closer and closer to Be Prepared range. Playing another Diablo, Luke getting a look at the hand, seeing what was drawn, noticing both the Be Prepared and the Sisu in hand. That doesn't feel good to see.
So I think knowing that the Sisu is there is really, really important for Luke, because now he knows that he needs to challenge into the smaller Sisu. What he can do is he can start with Diablo here, put a damage on it from here, then maybe finish it off with the Calhoun. And when I say the Diablo, I mean the small Diablo as well.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. It makes moving that Emboldened Warrior critical to prevent that shift for 6.
Yeah, with him playing the second big Diablo, I think you have to make sure that the big Sisu can't happen this turn. It does look like we're going to get that line. So Diablo's going to challenge in. Calhoun's going to challenge in. The Diablo does have a damage on it here.
Yeah, and we'll note Calhoun getting 2 lore off the banish there. So that delays the board wipe another turn. We do have the Be Prepared available on turn 7. Of course, better to lose all the characters than just your own.
So it looks like we're going to pass back over a card drawn finally off the Diablo here. So Luke can maybe possibly get something going here. Probably have at least 2 cards for next turn for him. Let's see if Daniel wants to give him any more. We're going to start out with a Brawl on the Diablo. There's a second one waiting, though, for Daniel.
But crucially cuts out that card draw. Now we can play an item, leverage Flavisham.
Yep, great play from Daniel. It's going to allow him to do that if he wants to. It looks like, here we go. Kamatoa is going to go into the ink. Popsicle's going to draw another card. Looks like it's a Maui. We're going to draw 2 more here. Looks like another Brawl and a Madam. He's going to be able to interact with this board every turn for the rest of the game, it looks like, for Daniel.
Yep, and this is where these control decks shine. We're now going into turn 7 next turn where Be Prepared is available. A lot of the high-end cards are available, and there's so much removal at Daniel's disposal here.
Oh, that's a Pete off the top for Luke here, though. That's pretty good.
Wow.
You can kind of play into the Be Prepared a little bit here.
Wow.
So Pete off
Top decking that at the perfect time. You know, oftentimes if you have a Pete in steel and you're playing against a deck with Be Prepared, you are playing that, you're saving it all game until turn 6 or your turn 7, depending if you play or the draw, to prevent your opponent from hitting it. He top decked that at the perfect time to shut down that Be Prepared. There are still removal answers available. Daniel will be able to deal with 1 or 2 of these characters, but the board wipe unavailable here, thanks to Pete coming down, blowing his whistle and saying, no action, sir.
Luke went ahead and challenged into the Haversam with 3 different characters here, including the Calhoun, finishing it off. So it gets a little bit of extra lore from here. We're back over to Daniel. And Daniel with a couple options here. He's got a Maui, he's got a Brawl, he's got a Madam. All access this turn that can start interacting with this board. And then next turn, he can possibly be prepared here, barring another top deck of a Pete from Luke here. I think that's pretty much one of his only ways to victory for this turn. So for this game.
I do like seeing the Maui Friend to All in this deck, by the way. I did mention earlier that some decks have started to work them out of their list. I've seen many Ruby Sapphire decks performing well in tournaments who don't use any. But seeing him here is great. It's a great card, and it'll provide some value here potentially. I do like when these are included in lists myself.
It does look like we're going to go ahead and Brawl, but you can't do that because of Pete. Daniel here, good catch by Luke here. The whistle, like you said, the whistle has been blown. It's really funny. Whenever we get this late in the game, when someone Petes, they're always like, oh yeah, I can't be prepared. And then they'll try to play one of the other actions because their brain just hasn't, connected with it. But it does look like the Madam's going to go ahead and take care of that Diablo. Maui's going to make it into the ink here. We're going to be passing back over to Luke.
All right, so Luke has bought himself a turn from that Be Prepared. It is available next turn, so now you have to think about not overextending. But the other problem is Luke wants that Be Prepared to be played at some point. He wants to play it on his terms.
And yeah, you may be wondering, why is he going to go ahead and use a card to take care of the Madam here? Use Streak of the Raging Fire, because he wants the Be Prepared to happen. If he doesn't do that, Daniel might have a turn where, oh, okay, my Madam gets a challenge into something, and then I just play Sisu, or I play something else, and it's still really bad for Luke, and then the Madam is still in play. Luke finding some value for his card. Also, not going to have characters in play, most likely, for the rest of the game. He's going to have probably 1 or 2, and that Shrink the Raging Fire is not going to be a good card later. 2 Prince John's followed up by Muse is not what Luke wants here.
No, Muse is not a great card. Now, usually Prince John is a wonderful card to play after a Be Prepared to kind of rebuild your board because it has Ward, and a lot of the targeted removal options won't be able to deal with it. Unfortunately, we know, and Luke also knows, that Sisu Empowered Sibling is there, able to remove it and sweep it from the board. So Daniel having the perfect answer for that.
Going to be a lot of dragon-like characters coming out of Daniel Holt's hand for the rest of the game here. The Maleficent, Brawl, and a Pirate's Life left over for Daniel. This is going to be a real uphill battle for Luke from here.
Oh, yes. 3 cards. I mean, you have the Maleficent, who can take care of any character that doesn't have Ward. So Prince John there will be safe for a bit. But then you also have, Brawl able to answer targeted characters. And then that Pirate's Life, which is just, honestly, I find it devastating in these matchups.
Exactly. Look, Visions is going to go ahead and take a look at the top 5. See a Queen of Hearts there, too, a card that's generally in there for the aggro matchups that we've been seeing the blue-red decks having a problem with. Tons of 2-drops in Daniel's deck here.
Yeah, Queen of Hearts, I actually love to see in here. I'm willing to bet it's probably a 2 of. It is in there for those aggro matchups. It was popular early on, I think 2 sets ago. Disappeared for a little while. It's worked its way back in here because aggressive decks are very popular right now, actually, including that Amber Steel deck that we've seen several times and some of the faster Emerald Amethyst decks.
Looks like a second Maleficent added to hand here, and then just a full retail Pirate's Life here to get 2 more lore points for Daniel, so 5 for the turn for him, and then 2 taken away from Luke here. We'll get an update on that lore for you if we can. Back over to Luke here. You get a Prince John. I was going to say a Muse is left over and an Ursula Deceiver. Well, cards have not come in the right order for Luke here in this game.
Well, it's just unfortunate. You know, Deceiver of All is not a terrible card that for Luke to want to stick here. Able to draw a card next turn, get some really good value off that Deceiver of All. But unfortunately, Daniel has the answers. There's multiple targeted removal options there that he can use to get rid of that Deceiver of All. With 2 Maleficents in his hand and a Brawl, it's going to be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, Popsicle off the top for Daniel here, but I think all of his ink is kind of lined up here. He's got 8. You can maybe even keep that Brawl if you want, but he's going to be able to use this Maleficent to great value here, take care of that Ursula Deceiver of All. That's one of those cards you don't want to let it going away just too much. It looks like we're going to go ahead, use the Popsicle, draw an Ice Block off the top, allow him to Brawl the Ursula down. Doesn't deploy the dragons just yet. It's got 2 left over. Can't really target this Prince John. Can't target the Muse that's in Luke's hand as well. That's at least something going for Luke here. He's got 2 characters with Ward.
Here we have I'm Still Here off the top deck. That 3-cost song giving something resist 2, but crucially at this point able to draw Luke a card. We'll see if he wants to play to his out here.
Looks like he's going to go ahead and use ink to do this as well to draw a card. Don't really want to sing it at this point. Card off the top looks like...
It's a Go-Go Tamago.
Interesting. Looking to quest here. Looks like Luke is considering it. It does look like he thought better of it. He's going to pass back over to Daniel.
We do have a Sisu Daring Visitor off the top deck here. No good targets for it because, of course, Prince John has Ward. So at this point, we'll see if Daniel wants to establish one of those dragons as some board presence. Just to keep it note, we're going to quest with the Sisu. Another Sisu in play.
Back over to here. Still got that Prince Johnson sitting around, that Ward carrying quite a bit here. Another Calhoun added to his hand here as well. It's something you're just going to eat up by a dragon if he plays, though. He knows they're there.
You do have to draw them out at some point. Muse is being played to the board here, establishing a bit of board presence. Probably not a lot of good targets for it, but definitely want to get some lore on the board. Here comes the Sisu off the top deck, sweeping Luke's board. Oh dear. And then leaving 7 lore on the board. Sisu, such an impactful card upon entering play, but then you're left with a 3 lore character able to close things out pretty quickly.
Another Pete off the top for Luke here. It's a little too little, a little too late. He's going to extend the hand. Daniel Holt is going to 2-0 this match, and that means that he's gotten the maximum number of points through the first 3 rounds today. And I haven't done exactly all the math, but from what I've known, I'm pretty positive Daniel Holt has just locked himself into day 2 already of this event.